And we're back, and you are with Villain Cast BJJ Antiheroes with myself, Chris the Villain Paynes. Weekly podcasts featuring either my fellow black belt Naki Arshad on our show Reap the Week, or compelling interviews with other personalities across Jiu-Jitsu. But before we jump into this next show, a thank you to our Patreon subscribers. If you'd like to receive these episodes one day early, along with exclusive video content and online coaching, you can find out more via chrispaynesbjj.com. Or join our Discord channel to put your ideas through for future episode discussions. For now, though, Steve Hordinski. How's it going, sir? It's been a while.
It's going good, man. Good to see you again. Last time you were here, we had a lot of fun. So
it's
always a pleasure, man.
You know, it's been a year now. I'm pretty sure it was last August I came out to you guys. It was just after I'd been to Heidelberg, and I'm about to go Heidelberg again. Which, depending when this episode comes out, I might actually be in Heidelberg. But yeah, it feels surreal. It's been a whole year since Charles and I dropped in to see you guys. Yeah, and like I said, it was we were saying this before we hit record. So I went out to see Steve and his gym over in just outside of Denver. And Steve had some incredible stories. I thought, if I ever get the podcast back going again, I need to just listen to Steve, because he's been around a long time. But for anyone who isn't aware of your little niche of jiu-jitsu, would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Oh, yeah. Well, Steve Hordinski. Been training jiu-jitsu now about 26 years. And I started in Hawaii when I was in the service. And I was stationed out there, and I started training with Gracie. So back in 1997, stepped on the mat and never stopped. So yeah, I've been doing a long time.
I feel weird that sometimes I'll meet people and they're like, "Oh, how long have you done jiu-jitsu?" I'm like, "Oh, 14 years." And then I hear how long you've been doing it, and I'm like, You add an extra 12 or automatically onto what I've done. I feel very new in this sport still compared to yourself. So yeah, those early days then of 1996, you would have been, 96, 97, you would have been one of the first people to start jiu-jitsu then. It's so long ago.
Yeah, there was, so in Hawaii, there was like maybe 2 generations before me. That was like, Egan and Ensign and Noi, they were with Helson. They branched off, did their own thing. I came in right after that. So the guys I started learning from were Chris and Mike Onizuka. They run O2 Mixed Martial Arts out there in Hawaii. They're Helson Gracie guys as well. So I started a little satellite school. And that was so I would probably say there's like one generation at least before me, because those guys have been like doing it before he even had his school, when they were teaching out at the University of Hawaii. So yeah, but other than that, yeah, I've been around for a long time, definitely. 1997, if you talked about jiu-jitsu, people would be like, definitely Haya all the time. They're like, "Oh, you do jiu-jitsu?" Oh, like karate Haya? It's like, no, it's still not really like that. Well, yeah, but it was like that all the time. Yeah, it's like I always tell people I was doing jiu-jitsu before it was cool. Nobody really knew what the hell it was.
Dude, it's still not cool. Don't worry, we're all in that boat. So
it's only cool to us. It's only cool to us.
Yeah, exactly. You talk to anyone outside the jiu-jitsu sphere, it ain't cool still. So what was training like back then? Like those early days, maybe some weirdos who had some UFC VHS knew about jiu-jitsu, but what was it like in the gym back in those days, learning it for those first intake?
Well, so if we go back to the beginning, when I first started jiu-jitsu, before I went in the military, the first UFC was here in Colorado, right? 1993. I was a sophomore or a freshman. No, I was a junior in high school when that happened. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I've never seen anything like this. So the next best thing, I was training in Kempo Karate. So I was doing the stand-up martial arts, and the next best thing was wrestling. So I signed up for wrestling, my senior year just to get some experience on the ground and how to develop takedowns or not get taken down. And if I did, being somewhat confident there. Um, but it wasn't until I joined the service in '94 after I graduated high school. I went out to Great Lakes, Illinois, went to boot camp. All in all, ended up stationed in Hawaii, and that's where I found jiu-jitsu. I was on deployment. We were in on an old LST 1184. It was like a amphib where we brought Marines on and we took them around to do their stuff. And one Marine on board was Phil Cardella, and he was doing some jiu-jitsu in the or martial arts in the tank deck, and that's where all the vehicles are that the Marines bring. So they brought a couple of mats, threw them down there. I went down to the first time, saw what they were doing. I was like, all right, let me see if this works. And literally, Phil Cardella just kicked the shit out of me. It was vicious. And I was like, oh man, if you wanted to kill me, this man could kill me with his bare hands, for real. Oh, sorry, I lost my head. But when I experienced that, I was like, you know what? I got to learn this. And so we started training. I'd be on watch, 6 hours on, 6 hours off. My off time, I was training for like hours down that tank deck with them and a few other Marines. And that's when it all started. When we got back to Hawaii, I immediately started training at the satellite school with Chris and Mike Onzuka. And so we were training a gymnastics center where it was like carpet padded floor. So like you didn't drag your knees, you didn't drag your toes, you played on the balls of your feet because it would get those carpet burns would get pretty nasty. So in the beginning it was very, you know what I'm talking about.
So I actually, before I had a small gym for a small period of time. It was on a badminton court with those carpet gymnastics mats. There was about 5 of us, and yeah, you didn't want to go to the ground necessarily because it fucking hurt. So I'm very aware that they are not good for doing jiu-jitsu on.
Yeah, it didn't take me too long to figure out like don't drag your knees. So I was always playing on my toes, and that actually helped with the pressure. I was able to put more pressure on people. So, but yeah, in the beginning it was like just barbarians, man. We just kicked the crap out of each other. We'd do class, I'd show up at the academy and we'd go for about I'd get there really, really early and I'd literally just sleep on the mat. And once, I'd have my gi over my head or I'd be like laying on my gi. And as soon as I started hearing, people and I started hearing the training going on, I'd wake up and it was on. We just trained for hours. After the training, we would do class. Helsing would let us train first and then would run class. So it worked out pretty good. But yeah, in the beginning, we're just trying to beat each other up, man.
I think those few of us maybe who were around earlier days, it was just a case of there's this thing called grappling. We don't really know what it's about, but we just know we can't punch each other. Let's just hurt each other and see what happens. And that's all the instruction we had. So you're there then. It's kind of fun that you're in Colorado and people think of jiu-jitsu landing in California and that kind of being the initial explosion. We think where you're at is like it's ground zero because that's where it started. That's where people first saw that, oh shit, like there's something else about these martial arts. It's not ninjas anymore. It's whatever the hell these ground guys are. So yeah, that you despite then disappearing off to Hawaii and learning out there, you are born at the ground zero of jiu-jitsu, which is so strange that you have one of these gyms right there, and I'm so glad I got to meet you there. So you've watched then that you're training with these guys and it's just a bunch of dudes kicking the shit out of each other. Where did jiu-jitsu change then? How did jiu-jitsu change over the preceding years?
Okay. Well, so my first competition, white belt. It was 1997, and I had been just training out at sea with Phil, and then I came back, and I think I maybe had like a few months where I was training at uh, the satellite location with the Onzuka brothers. And I went and did that competition, and I had a blast. I mean, I dislocated the tip of my finger. That was the first time I jacked up my hand. Went in to grab and went boom. But that was the first match. But I finished out pretty good. I won my division, won all submissions, and then I lost in the open. Got caught with the big guy. He had my head. I didn't know what to do. It's still pretty brand new. And immediately after that, Helson told me I was going to start come training with him at his academy, and I got my blue belt probably after 6 or 7 months of training. And then I was pretty, I was in the competition. I was competing as much as I could. Helson, would, I didn't pay for lessons. I would just go out there and represent the team, and because I was winning a lot of competitions, Helson just kind of let it be. That was our thing. I go out and compete, win, and show up and train. And so it was pretty cool. It wasn't until like I always felt like after training that I was so dang tired. Like literally, it took everything for me to get into my house and get up and take a shower. I literally just I put it all on the mat every time, every day, and I would get into my house, and I would just lay on the floor for about like 20, 30 minutes. I'm like, all right, time to get cleaned up and eat and everything. But one of the guys I used to hang out with, we used to carpool back and forth in Hawaii, Rex, he would always talk to me. He would talk to me, there's going to be a time when it starts to make sense, and you're going to train, and you're going to be like, hey, I'm not that tired. It wasn't until I was like probably well into my blue belt that one day I remember coming home, and I was like, well, I'm not as tired. So I started developing technique, and it was mostly probably because I had a good trainer partner. Barrett Yoshida was the guy I trained with the most there, and we would always drill. So we would drill in the beginning, and I really think that the drilling in the beginning, arm bars, triangles, basic stuff that you're going to use all the time, I think that really kind of set me up to have like a good foundation in jiu-jitsu, good training partners, drilling, and competition. And then, wanting to evaluate. We did video all the time. Helson would record all our matches, and we would do video study afterwards, and we would be like, all right, how do I correct this? How do I stop this? But I think that the biggest things for me when it started to like become like a system was probably towards the end of my blue belt, and it was like drilling. I was logging it. I was paying attention to how I was getting caught. I was paying attention to what submissions were working good for me, and then just going out and battle testing it. Competing every competition I could.
So from that style, then that you kind of developed your way of learning of, like you say, do the fundamentals, battle test, fix, and study. How has that informed how you run your gym? So like I say, you have the Katharo Training Centre. How do you structure how you bring your students forwards then?
Well, so I did. The one thing that I will say is like it wasn't like our classes were not organized with Helson. It was kind of like you'd ask questions. They were very interactive. They were great classes, but it's like only the strong survived in that environment. Like only the people that were fine, just getting beat up, getting worked all the time. It wasn't. The curriculums weren't there. It wasn't very organized. So it was definitely the first thing that I did with one of my other friends. He's a black belt that came out from Hawaii to kind of help set up shop here in Colorado. Was Chemo. Chemo came out. He kind of showed me from what he picked up from all the years of training with Helson, kind of this is what we did in these areas. So he kind of gave me a rough draft, and then from that I developed my fundamentals curriculum. to encompass those ideas with like takedowns, some of the self-defense, to kind of stay true to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu kind of way of things, at least the things that I thought were applicable for grappling, and then just picking like fundamental movements, how to transition into the mount, a couple ways to do that, what to do from the mount, how to escape the mount, then move into the next. So I developed a 27 lesson rotating curriculum where I do one lesson a week, and I do the first half and the second half Tuesday, Thursday. That right there was a really good program for me, though, because I put me into a consistent program where I would constantly get better every time I would go through, because I would see a better way of doing something the more time I spent there, and the more time I spent teaching different people how to like be proficient in these areas. And I like side control escapes. I'm gonna close this door real quick because the damn washer keeps going.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah. No worries.
But it was really I still, to this day, I teach my fundamentals for that reason, because I know every time I go through the fundamentals, I'm going to pick up a bunch of details about my jiu-jitsu that I learned from Helson, my interpretation of it, and every time I feel like I just level up every rotation we do. So I think the fundamentals curriculum was the best thing I did for my academy, but I didn't keep it rigid. I always allowed for the fundamentals to adapt. I think that's what's unique about jiu-jitsu, is that, it's a living art. It's constantly evolving. People are getting better at doing things. They're understanding, how to, like, for example, what you showed some really good things that, like me, who's been doing it for a long time, immediately could apply to my game, which is that idea change of where to put your arms and how to keep people from passing and keep them, like you said, south of your knees. And, but definitely the fundamentals set that to where it gave me a good platform to grow and expand off of. So, moving into 2020 is when we changed everything, because, we weren't running classes here. We were just training all the time. And then people were learning because of the training. And we would control the training. We'd be like, all right, here we're going to be in closed guard, and you have to hold this position and maintain this structure and make people work around you, working the balance and the tension. And these guys just start passing guard. They don't even know what they were called. They were doing knee cut pass, backside pass. They didn't know any of the names of the guard pass. And they just knew hold, structure, and when it opens, move. So we started implementing more of that old school idea of training first, conceptually, teaching next. So my advanced classes are all concept. I don't really teach a lot of steps or anything. I just teach them how to control, how to transition, and then some options of finishing or moving into another position. But I just went straight concepts out of 2020. So that's why it was really good to work with you, because you're teaching concepts. Charles is teaching concepts. Javier Vasquez is teaching concepts. So I think concepts are the way to go.
Well, it's interesting. Like, when it comes to very similar to what you've just been saying, is you need to put kind of more faith in people. Like, if you teach them the basic, physics and physiology of jiu-jitsu, about why things work the way they do, and then just leave them to it, they come out with the right answer eventually. Because if we were to delete all of human information, we'll rediscover physics, we rediscover maths. And if we were to completely delete all our understanding of jiu-jitsu and then let 1,000 years pass, we'd rediscover jiu-jitsu, because it's just physics. And I think if you give people those options, of course, sometimes you have to kind of help them along with the things that you've kind of already discovered. But I think giving them too much of a guide and walking them through it and not allowing them to understand the context for what they're doing is unhealthy. And it's And it's easy as a coach to, I've said it before, like try and prove your worth by showing how smart you are and wanting to keep just giving people more and more information. But like I said, in fundamentals, it's the same thing repeatedly, as in these are the physics and the physiology of jiu-jitsu. Enjoy, like go see how your body works, and discover, and you'll get the context for what we're talking about. And I think it's very easy to get stuck in that cycle of needing to always just handhold people through. I think it's almost too unhelpful sometimes. It's counterintuitive in that way.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. You know, everybody's gonna have stuff that they do different, but like jujitsu is like you're able to express yourself. You're a lot of your personality comes out and you're rolling. And when I look back, you know, I took a lot of class in the beginning to understand how the rules were or how the game was played. Once I understood, like, this is what I want to do from this position, this is the objective here, then it was a lot of just self-learning, you know, a lot of just getting in those positions and being like, all right, I got stuck here, this didn't work, maybe I try this. And then I would just, you know, kind of, you know, tinker with jiu-jitsu and come up with stuff that made sense to me. And that happened about that time when I was, you know, halfway through my blue belt. That's when I started just like innovating off those basic ideas. And I would be like, all right, I'm looking for the most efficient and effective way for me to move, and how I would trust my body though too, because if it felt like I was using too much strength, then I'd be like, all right, I have to figure out why I'm using too much strength and see if I can't dial it back to where I'm using more technique than strength. And then I started, you know, going for a feel, when the move felt right, when it felt effortless, when it felt fluid, when it felt smooth, not clunky, when the crucial battles in those transitions were easy to win. That's when I knew that it was something that I would add to my game, like my knee shield and you know, the way that I play that, all the stuff that's in my game from day one to, you know, 26 years later, that stuff was all developed on those mats in Hawaii. And we had a lot of tough guys coming through because Hawaii was like kind of a hub. A lot of people might not know this, but so back in the day when Helson brought jiu-jitsu to Hawaii, he set up shop there. He was bringing guys to the worlds. And this is when they were being held, when the jiu-jitsu competitions were being held in Brazil. And he was one of the first to bring in non-Brazilian world champions, not at the black belt level right away, but the first ones was like Kendo Gu. Kendo Gu came in, he won at blue belt in Brazil. And if you kind of know how they structured it there, it's like everyone, all the different like cities or whatever in Brazil they would do qualifiers to be able to compete in those tournaments. The Americans, we could just come in and compete because we'd travel. But they all had to qualify. So it was pretty impressive that Kendo Gu was in there and Kelly Musavar. They were both guys that went out there with Helson, and they got first and second, and then they fought, and then Kendo Gu got first. So that was pretty neat to know. And then, you know, seeing in Hawaii, like by then we had Grappling Unlimited. You know, there was already a bunch of jiu-jitsu schools popping off. Like you had Homolo, Longman Jiu-Jitsu. You know, these places were starting to grow in Hawaii. And at the same time, you see growth coming into New York, California, and Florida. But in the beginning, it was, Helson used to say, Brazil was number one for jiu-jitsu, Hawaii was number two. And now, of course, you know, jiu-jitsu is everywhere. So you can't really, I still say that probably California, Florida, and New York are probably the hot spots. Midwest is pretty popping out here though nowadays as well. So it's everywhere. But back then it was there were only a few places where you could find good jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, completely. I say it was. I mean, being in the UK, I feel that we were a good few years behind you guys, definitely. I mean, we don't. I mean, I remember even when I started in 2009, black belts weren't common, and if you saw a purple belt, that was like, oh damn, like that person's a dangerous person. They weren't that common. Now, in my town alone, there's a good 4 or 5 black belts, and you think that wasn't the case. It feels weird. It feels like there's going to be it has to be a saturation point, where we kind of hit peak karate, and it kind of goes downhill again. I mean, it's going back to some of the stuff you did say. It's actually kind of like interesting is that we're both guys who came through when there was not much in the way of information on jiu-jitsu. I mean, obviously you had Helson, but we kind of left to our devices to try and just figure this game out and train hard. And it's funny you talk about how the fundamental classes have really helped you, and I find that I've always been of the opinion of I will teach the beginners, just because I'm allowed to think of the concepts and the movements repeatedly, and they settle into my head better because I'm always trying to find a simpler way of explaining them. And anything I then want to do, I play, and that I think that's probably one of the best ways of learning jiu-jitsu, which then completely goes against the idea that I'd put classes on. So I know that it was like looking into a mirror, like hearing what you're saying of teaching the fundamentals, exploring the ideas in your head, and then playing and seeing what felt the most natural for you, and having the time and the space to play. It almost feels like it's then trying to create that environment for people underneath us, as in, well, this is how I learn. Why can't I just give it to you as well? And it's almost like I'm at the point now where I don't actually I don't do much in classes. Like I'll show one technique or I'll show an idea. Like I'll say, right guys, I want you to deny the other person. Like say one person's on their back, one person's upright, person who's upright. Deny the other person going behind you in any way. They can't go behind your knees. They can't go behind your head. They can't go behind your body. Okay, deny guard. Deny it and then try and get past their knees. And see you in an hour. I'll see you at sparring. I'm just going to leave you to figure it out. You don't need me off my Ritalin, reminding you of new techniques every 5 minutes. I'm just going to allow you to play, and I've given you the context. Like, this is what guard feels like, is when they get these access points. Don't let them. Feel your way through it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. You make me feel old, though, man. You said 2009 is when you started?
I know. You'd already been there for 12 years. That's hilarious.
I got my black belt January 17th, 2009.
I started March 4th, I think it was, or March 3rd or something. So, yeah,
I can't believe how
that's
time flying, bro. I've been having so much fun with you.
That's what I find. That's what again, like one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you is that you've been a black belt longer than I've even been doing this, and you would have probably been one of the rare black belts around in those days.
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, carry on. No, carry on.
I was going to say, what you described, though, like the purple belt, back in Hawaii, that was so true. When I was on the mat, I'd be like, if you saw a purple belt come in, you're like, dang, that guy's got to be good. He's a purple belt. We didn't have any black belts. The first black belt that Helson ever promoted was Steve Maxwell. And
oh, yeah, of course.
That was a long time ago. And then, some other guys got it. I moved away. I got mine in, like I said, 2009 in January. And But man, like if you were a purple belt, man, I used to come out here to Colorado too. I saw the scene. It was brand new here because when I was in the military, um, I would come back on leave and I wanted to go train, so I would go down train in Boulder with Amal Easton, and I would always go there. My dad actually started training jiu-jitsu because I took him down there once, told him I wanted to open up a school, and he said, "Well, I better learn what this is." And so he started training jiu-jitsu back in what like around 2000. He's been training a long time. He's a third degree black belt as well.
Oh wow.
But yeah, but those were the times, man.
So
It just happened like that though, man. It's like I feel like it was yesterday.
yeah, I know, and I feel so crazy sometimes. I'm sitting on the mats and I'm bringing up stories of the past, like, you know, you guys don't know what it was like, and you know, I remember the days before you could get a rash guard and stuff like that, or like gis came in 2 sizes, big or small, and it was like, that was it. And they're like, what the fuck you on about? Like, it wasn't that long ago. Like, it feels like long ago. It feels, you know, it's not age, it's mileage, and we've put a lot of mileage on the mats.
Oh yeah.
So when did you open your gym then? When when did you get back to Colorado?
All right. So when I was so being stationed in Hawaii, there's a lot of billets, you know, you can fulfill in the Navy. But you know, I was looking for something very specific that would allow for me to train. So I went to volunteer for Navy Dive School in 1999. I was up for orders. I wanted to make sure I could come back to Hawaii. I talked to some divers. They said there was a lot of places I could go as a Navy diver and stay in Hawaii. So I put in my package. I shipped out to Panama City, Florida for 5.5 months of training, where I learned to become a Navy diver. And when I got there, you know, I was like, well, I need to find a place to train jiu-jitsu. And there was nowhere. But I found some martial arts schools with some really crappy pads or matted floors like that. And I was like, well, this will work. You know, even if there was grass, I didn't care. I was like, I'm trying. But I got out there. I went through dive school. They had some mats. I eventually had a key to the dive school. Like, they trusted me as a student to have a key to the dive school because, like, I trained jiu-jitsu. I was competing, and the captain or the commanding officer of the dive school, he liked me. He had a little experience in jiu-jitsu, and we all used to get together on the weekends and fight each other, you know, choke each other, and you know, put each other in arm bars. And he told me if I was to graduate, you know, first in my class, then I would get sent back to Hawaii. He'd cut me orders. I got second in the class. He said that was good. He said it was good enough. Good job. I'm sending you back. So I went back to Hawaii. I got to my first dive locker, and you know, I was heavily into competition. But being in Hawaii, you've got to take leave, and the military only gives you like 2 weeks to leave every year. And I would blow through that in one competition or two competitions. So I was like, well, so I didn't come home to see my family much. I went to go and compete until I got to that first dive locker, and one of the guys, Tim Hall, he was a senior diver there, and he's someone I looked up to, and he was on the all-Navy ski team. So I went to him, I said, hey, tell me more about when you were on the all-Navy ski team. He's like, well, I started it. I was like, how did you start this? So he told me what he did. Went down to MWR, started it. So I went down to MWR, and I started the all-Navy Jiu-Jitsu team, and I was the only person on it, so that I could take more leave. Yeah, I was like taking leave. My commanding officers, they hated. How are you getting all this leave? I was like, all Navy Jiu-Jitsu. You're the only guy. But I got to go do all these competitions. I got to travel to the mainland. I got to go to Brazil, compete. You know, so it was like my plan worked, and I did that. Was at Mudsu 1. Shoreside, where we worked on the nuclear submarines, fixing them and ships and everything. Then I went to Mudsu Seaside, where we did all the deep water salvage and more of the traveling. But yeah, I spent 11 years in the Navy. 10 years of that was pretty much in Hawaii. and majority of it was training jiu-jitsu. So I got out in 2005. I was going to re-enlist. I thought about, moving into something different with in the dive community. I was thinking about EOD or something like that, or even, now that my eyes were fixed, I was like, maybe I could go to Buds or something like that, which is kind of what I originally wanted to do. But after training jiu-jitsu for that long, I was like, I just want to compete and open up a school. Called my dad. Hey, Dad, I'm up for orders. I'm thinking about going EOD. He's like, why don't you think about coming home? So I came home. My grandfather, he was doing that great. So, it was good to spend time with him. And I worked some bullshit jobs, man. It was terrible. I found out that I am the worst employee that anybody could hire, because if I could do the job better than you, I don't even fucking listen to you. And so I finding work, being a vet, being a guy who was, in a special programs, I was like, man, I'm better off doing my own thing. So I walked away from a sales job, suit and tie. There was a guy that was serving at this local place that we would go eat lunch. It's called Bar Louie. His name's Justin Salas. We'd go there and he would serve us, and he saw that I had cauliflower ear, and he was a fighter. And so he asked me if I wrestled, and I said, no, I train jiu-jitsu. I'm a brown belt. I was a brown belt at the time. I was like, I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. And he's like, well, I'm a fighter. Can you come and, work with me on some stuff? I was like, yeah. So the next day I had suit and tie. I brought training gear, and I showed up at the gym, took off the suit and tie, trained with him. And 2 weeks later, I quit my job, and I was working for nothing at this gym called LA Boxing, where I was teaching jiu-jitsu. It was terrible because they had booty shaking music, and the girls cardio kickboxing. I'm trying to teach jiu-jitsu here, but it got me started. And I worked with Justin and a few of the guys. This is my first time working inside of MMA. And it was back like 2006 or 2007, I think it was. And from there, I started acquiring, getting students in. And I decided to leave LA Boxing, and I was going to go to Boulder. I had an affiliate in Boulder. And so I would just teach there. And then I was like, well, I need to open my own school. So I moved back home to my dad's house. That's pretty kind of embarrassing when you're like, an adult, because I was like 30 years old, 30 something. I was like 32 years old. I'm going to start a jiu-jitsu school, but I'm going to move back home. So I moved back home, told my dad what we were going to do. And then in 2009, after I competed in the Worlds, that was the last big competition I did, black belt division, I opened up the school with my dad. And that was, we were in a dungeon. It was a basement. You went down there, it stunk, low ceilings, no natural light. But that was the place we started. And we moved out of that place into this one within 5 years. So back then, yeah, it was in a recession too. So like nobody was, really starting businesses back then. But I was like, well, I'll figure this out. No experience. Didn't know what the hell I was going to do. Didn't know if I was going to be able to pay rent. I was like, let's just fucking go for it and figure out if we do it. My dad would always say, I said, Dad, I think we're going to do great. I think we're doing real good. He's like, I'll just be happy when we can pay the bills. He used to say that all the time. But
I think we've all been in those, like I said, it's funny hearing these stories, because it was the exact same for me. I started in I ran a gym in a fitness center. It had the exact same style of music on. There was about 10 mats if I was lucky. And I remember putting adverts out in the papers and stuff like that. I think I was on the front page and I had one guy show up on my first day. I was like, cool, let's start then. I didn't have, fucking clue what I was doing. And yeah, like I said, I've been on, then that gym closed, so I ended up on the, rolling out gymnastics mats on a badminton court, and you had people like on the courts next to us still playing badminton, and there was just like four guys on some carpet, like rough mats, just like, you know,
Oh,
hurting
yeah.
each other. um, you know, we'd move the net out the way and just start doing that. So yeah, it's if there's mats, if there's somewhere on the floor we could lie down and do stuff, like jiu-jitsu can exist. And we just hope people don't look at us weird and they join in, and eventually it can pay bills and we can get bigger places. That's literally the story of most of us at this point.
Yeah, start somewhere,
So
man.
yeah, exactly. And it was funny. Like I've got a student over in, affiliate. I'm helping out over in Switzerland. I'm actually seeing him next week. And he had some issues with his instructor. His instructor wasn't maybe the nicest person. He was a blue belt. I was like, look, you know, why don't you get your own place? If you're not happy, like if you feel it's an unhealthy atmosphere, start somewhere. He goes, well, how? I was like, just find a kickboxing gym or something that'll just, if they have some mats, just ask if you can rent it for an hour or two a week and start there. And now he's in probably one of the nicest dojos I've ever seen.
Nice.
And he's got a good group around him. This is like taking him 2 years and he's already there. I'm like, so you just have to trust, you know, if you've got good jiu-jitsu and you've got somewhere people can just sit on the floor comfortably, like, it'll grow. Don't you worry. But you've got to eat shit for a little bit.
Yeah.
We've all been in the shit places.
I remember, dude, I remember times, man. I'd be like, I don't know. I never would give up, but if there's times when I was like, how am I gonna make this work? It was discouraging and rewarding, and even now, there's always challenges, but it's my tolerance for stress and my tolerance to deal with these ongoing problems has gotten to the point where it doesn't really affect me as much, you know, because I figure, you know, I've been around for a long time now. I think I've had my gym, since 2009 when I opened it. Real first year, my first month open was March 2010. I did a soft opening, and then, yeah, I've been going ever since. So, and it's always been stressful. I moved into this place way too early. I was not a good leader in the beginning, because that's another thing is like, it wasn't just the jiu-jitsu that I had to learn. I had to learn to be a little bit nicer to people. I had to learn to, you know, talk to people. I used to throw people out of my school if it got sideways. I would just like, get the fuck out, you know. Like I would fucking yell at someone and be like, get the fuck out of here, you know. Like, not the best, but, you know, Helson was kind of like that, so it kind of made sense that I would be like that. He would throw people out too, but I didn't tolerate a lot, and I didn't really have the patience or the communication skills. Even teaching, my first ideas around teaching is like, I would just show the move and I would tell people to do it like me, and then I would try to adjust them. But, you know, not everybody's going to move like you, especially if you've been doing it a long time. It's an unrealistic expectation for me to say that. So I started doing leadership courses. I started, you know, learning to speak better, doing like public speaking courses, and then just to kind of build those confidence when you're in front. And then, you know, doing seminars too. You know, you build a lot of. I enjoy doing seminars. Seminars are fun because it's a new group and you get to go in, and I like always teach different, because that's when all that training will come out, like where the speaking, the engagement, you know, making it fun, like you guys did when you did your seminar. You made it fun. You know, I think that's an important as a presenter, to make the information interesting, simple, easy to apply, and have fun. You know.
I think it was actually I was listening to I think it might have been Theo Von. I think I was listening to his podcast. He had a comedian on, and they were talking about delivering, doing comedy, doing a comedy night. And, you know, they don't go in necessarily with a script. They just have these ideas in their head, and they're trying to then tell a story live and like make everything kind of flow together, and they have the little cues maybe that kind of like lead them on to the next part of the story. And I could really relate to that, as in when doing seminars, that I could be sitting there for a 3-hour period, and I've got to weave a story together of like, I've got these ideas in my head. I haven't written a script for this. I know roughly how everything kind of interweaves, but I'm making a story right now. Like I am trying to tell it in a way that's going to keep you engaged, and it leads on to the next thing. It's just not, oh, here's 3 things. And that's you know, I remember going to seminars previously, and you know, I'd be like, oh, you know, at the end of it, maybe the black belt wouldn't roll, and be like, motherfucker, like, you know, that's the best part of this. Why aren't you rolling? And then after doing seminars personally, I'm like, I am fucked. Like after 3 hours of like keeping that story going, my brain is fried. Like I'll put some rolls in, but don't expect me to be that useful. And exactly, I think it was I had. I think it was Greg Souders, I might have said it recently. I had him on my podcast, and he was talking about Danaher. It might be on the podcast, it might have been when we were talking afterwards, but he said, you know, you shouldn't be afraid to fail as a coach. You have to know you will. And I kind of like that idea that, you know, especially, you know, if I look at a student and think, you know, look at how you roll now compared to how you rolled like 4 years ago. Like you could be a purple belt now, you might have been a white belt 4 years ago, for example. Do you roll the same? No. Well, what the fuck would I? Well, same for me coaching. Like I know I'm a black belt, but my coaching should improve just as much as your rolling. And I should be able to look back at how I was coaching 4 years ago. What the fuck was I saying? Like that's like watching a dumbass roll. And like I say, it's that whole. You know, my school had a reputation for being rough. Like my coach put me in hospital the first night I was there.
What?
And oh yeah, he fucked me up that hard. Like, I thought I was dying. So I had to go I went to the emergency room afterwards. But when I took over, I kept that same mentality that I was like, you know, you either get fucked up or you know, this ain't proper. I mean, we used to do one of the things they used to have us do was animal night. Do not do that anymore. And it used to be you couldn't do technique. You weren't allowed to do techniques. You weren't allowed to do submissions, and you couldn't hold a position for more than 3 seconds. You just had to brutally hurt someone bad enough that they just quit. Wow. And that you'd bleed by the end of it. Like there was just blood everywhere, and you think, no wonder no one stayed for those first years, because you had to have something wrong with you to like want to carry that on. You think that's how 100%. I was coaching, you know, 10 years ago. If someone was to like watch my video, if it says I was to do a video from 10 years ago that, you know, this is what I'm doing, this animal night, let's, you know, you need someone's throat in enough and they'll eventually quit. I don't coach like that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, exactly, your ability to do delivery. I mean, it was interesting when I started doing these videos, like recording to camera. I was like, how the fuck do you record to camera? Like the first time I sat down with a camera in front of my face, I went, yeah, I have a technique to show. So I looked at what YouTubers do, because I'm like, they deliver to camera all the time. Like, how the fuck do you deliver? And one of the things that they said, you know, kind of kept on coming back up was, don't imagine it as a camera, imagine it as a person. So I used to hang photos underneath the camera of friends and like deliver to my friends. It's easy now, like, because you know, I know there's people listening, so I'm like, I'm delivering for you. But it's the exact same of you could. It's easy in jiu-jitsu to want to listen to people who have done well, especially competitively. Yet the biggest hurdle is communication. I don't give a shit what people have won in competition. You could have won all the worlds. You could be Mr. Jiu-Jitsu Universe for all I give a fuck about. But if you can't communicate your ideas and help me understand the message you're trying to give, I won't understand what the fuck you're doing then. And yeah, so I think it's one of the biggest things. That if you're gonna be a black belt in a gym, yeah, cool, be a good role. But if you're gonna run a gym and be a coach, learn communication. And it may not just be from the jiu-jitsu sphere. It could be from anything. Look at, I say this all the time, like look at the best coaches and managers in other sports like NFL, you know, soccer in the UK. It wasn't good footballers. It wasn't good athletes. It was good communicators.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, I'd listen to a smart communicating purple belt over a world champion black belt any day. And yeah, you're completely right. It's, if you're going to be a leader in the gym, like, learn to be a leader. Don't just think you have to learn more jiu-jitsu. It doesn't help.
Yeah. It's, you know, I get a lot from teaching that's really, you know, it's neat to, it's very inspiring to see, you know, the way jiu-jitsu will change someone's perspective, someone's life, you know. And, you know, you work with a lot of vets or, you know, just people who have a lot of trauma, they come in and do jiu-jitsu. That's great. And there's nothing that makes me happier than to see that person become a savage on the mat. So, and also for my selfish motivation, the better I make them, the better my techniques have to be, so we all level up. So I pour into my students. Our classes, my lunch crew is really special to me, but all my students. But in that lunch crew, I say here, like for example, this week, next week, moving into next week, we're probably going to do this we'll stay with one idea for like a month, 2 months, sometimes depends on how much we're discovering as a whole. But like this next month is going to be, all right, every negative position, you're going to stand up. The objective is just to stand up. I don't care if it's side control. I don't care if you're mounted, they're on your back. Your job is to stand up. And so we're playing with that idea that I don't know where he got it, but Charles, he came out, he did a little filming for us on choke theory. And he was talking about the 10 seconds of stillness. You know, he's like, the 10 seconds of stillness. Yeah. And I was like, oh, boy, I can use that. And I was like, well, it doesn't just apply to choking. It applies to any time when there's stress, muscle stress that I'm putting on myself, either locking, framing, pushing, pulling. I can use that. So we went into and I did that seminar, and then the next weekend I was in the UFC coaching my fighter, his UFC debut in this last on July 16th, right? With he fought JDM, and he's first debut. He's co-main event, and he's fighting a ranked fighter, and we just did a 25-30 pound weight cut. So I'm like, how? And you know, JDM's a good striker. Our strength is going to be takedown, grappling, jiu-jitsu, you know. And I'm like, this is going to be interesting. How do we prepare a grappling match for a guy who just cut that much weight? And so we applied that idea in the few days we had to prepare. And you know, my guy's he's a first-degree black belt under Ricardo Milgrease, Balance Studios. So he comes from my lineage because we kind of all came up under that Helsin flag, so it was easy to work with him. But we just introduced that one idea, and we saw in the warm-up just how tired he could make someone who's fresh and in shape. So we applied it there, and I'll tell you, and like ideas like that, an idea like that will change the way you do jiu-jitsu. And for me, it does. As soon as I saw that, I was like, I can do something with this. And chokes that I wouldn't normally do work. But more importantly, we were able to put on a show against that guy when we were supposed to get knocked out in the first round, quote unquote. That's what everybody was saying was going to happen. And with 3 rounds, I thought our guy won, man. We controlled on the ground the first 2 rounds, control time, got some good hits in, but ultimately lost the split. But what I saw is an idea that I got from Charles, and I don't know where he got this idea. Maybe you guys worked it together, I don't know, but that idea is something that immediately I could apply into fighting and utilizing jiu-jitsu in the way, you know, in a fight. So, man, I'm always learning. Every time I approach a new problem, like if someone has a question, I always take the approach that I'm going to look at this as a new thing. Even if I know the answer, I don't know the answer. The first thing I say is, I don't know. Let's look at it. Because the moment I start to say like I know it, I just don't feel like you're going to come into approach that problem with the like, like with an open mind. You're coming into it with like already an idea on how to go, and I tried to just not do that. Even if I know, like, all right, I know how to escape the mount. Hey, I'm getting stuck here. I don't know. Let's look at it. And then I look at it as like as a white belt, and I trust my years invested on the mat to find the most efficient way to move. And that's how I've been developing my jiu-jitsu for the last, probably 10 years. It's just, I don't know. Let's work on it. So
I think,
yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. There's a lot to be said about humility, as in being able to, it was funny, recently I've been talking about this idea of a league table in the gym of, you go into the gym and, you know where you are in the league. You don't want to fall down the league. You don't want people below you to submit you or whatever. You want to climb the league. But when you kind of hit the top, like, you get your black belt, you stop caring about the league. And you're just like, well, yeah. I know I don't mind losing to beginners. I don't mind saying, I don't know. I think that was a scarier thing to admit lower down the rank in the league, because like someone said, well, as a purple, do you know this? Yeah, I know this. Why wouldn't I know this? And I'm like, fuck, I don't. I need to have a look at it, and it's your ability to change those opinions over time. I think is again like one of those things is a healthy attitude to have, and actually makes us better. And it's another one of those skills that hopefully it's with a bit of introspection, being able to go, how do I give this to everyone's jiu-jitsu? Like, how do I get rid of the league table so you can admit you're wrong and go, let's look at this again. The more I look at this, the more I'm going to understand jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, 100%. The more you look, the more you see. It's that rabbit hole. It just keeps going.
Yeah,
never
exactly.
Stops.
Exactly. And it's funny as well. Like, you talk about Charles. Charles, man, he's. I don't think he knows the damage he does to people's jiu-jitsu once he leaves. Like, he drops his little bombs and then he just walks off into the distance to the next little bit of traveling that he does, and we're left to pick up the pieces. I mean, he has fundamentally changed my gym. I don't think he appreciates that fully. And I've had a student come. I have one of my students who's a white belt. He very, very good white belt. He runs ultra marathons, and he went and did an ultra marathon in Mongolia, 150 miles or something in a couple of days.
Jeez.
And so he was training for that, and it was like very hot and dry whilst he was there. So he went away to train for that for a few months. He came back recently and said, I don't think I even recognize this gym anymore. Like, it is so fundamentally like on a atomic level, everything's changed. And like, just blame fucking Charles Harriott. Like, he's such an interesting guy, and his understanding of jiu-jitsu and the damage he causes from it. I mean, we did a DVD together back in March with Fanatics called Unstoppable Stand-Ups, and it is based upon his elbow frame, which he did at your gym. And again, at that moment in time, I didn't fully appreciate it, but since then, dude, I can't teach guard anymore because of that goddamn elbow frame. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And
you just stand up.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not holding me down, I'll just get up then. And I find it so hard to teach normal jiu-jitsu now because of that man. It was funny as well. You talk about like the stillness. I remember, again in my youth and my naivety, I did a lot of strength training to try and think it was going to help me in jiu-jitsu, like pushing, pulling, lifting, squatting, whatever. And then it was like realizing over time it was the stillness strength. Like, I started bouldering, rock climbing, and they have the isometric strength of just being able to lock off, like half, have your arm halfway and just lock off on that strength. And even someone said to me recently, like, climbers don't squeeze, they position their hand and they stay still. I'm like, that sounds like jiu-jitsu. If I have someone in a clinch, I'm not pulling them in. I just lock off. I remember hearing people describe like that's what you call the fight strength, is when you meet someone who has that isometric strength compared to a gym strength. Completely changed how I train now for strength in jiu-jitsu. I find climbing helps me more than going to the gym for strength reasons.
100%.
Yeah, goddamn Charles Harriott. I'm gonna have to get him on again.
I'll tell you what, he every time, man, he always shows good stuff, man. Like it's eye opener, and it's like, oh, I can use that. He got an old guy like me going inverted now. Like I stopped inverting because my back was hurt, and he's like, well, just do it this way, and he showed me kind of how to do it, like how he does it. I was like, oh, I can do that. So I'm like, all right, let's fuck with this. And it's been a lot of fun since I ran into you guys, man. You two guys, man. I got to get you back out here. Next time when you get back to the States here, definitely want to get you in, man. Because you changed my game.
I should be back in the States, dude. Likewise, I said, like it was really fun. Like Derek kind of being such a great connection, and you have I say the gym atmosphere is created by the coach, and if the coach is a douchebag, the gym usually ends up just a collection of douchebags. But your gym and how you guys were, and not just during the training we had, but also prior and also after, like it felt homely, and it was another one of those gyms where you walk in and it doesn't feel like it feels like a jiu-jitsu gym should. And I remember getting to Denver Airport back in March, for a quick few hour layover, and I was like, damn, if I had more time, I'd call in. And it felt homely, and I absolutely miss being out with you guys. I should be out probably before the end of the year. Like I now have a reason to visit the US pretty frequently, so I should be out before you know it. I'd love to call in with you guys. So to close up, and we'll talk more of your stories, I'm sure, over food. But for anyone who wants to, because you do a lot of I've seen you have quite a bit of content you create as well, like you record your techniques. How do people find more about you? Where do they find you? Online, but also in person. Your technical videos. How do you get more, Steve?
Well, if you're in Colorado, Denver area, we're Katharo Training Centre. We're in Littleton. You can come in and open door policy. We let anybody come in. You figure the idiots don't stick around because they get throttled if they come in acting stupid. But so we have a pretty good mat that manages dipshits. But online, online we've got the my Instagram, but I have my app, Jiu-Jitsu on the Go, jjotg.com. It's Android, iOS. We even have you on there too, so people can come and see what you and Charles did the first time we actually met. And then
oh no.
Hey, oh, shit. It's good. I sent you a link. It's good, man. I think I did send it to you, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I watched it a few times when you talked about the pillars, and when you did the diagram. That helped a lot, making things simple for the leg locks and everything. But we also have I one BJJ Fanatics, the arm entanglement, something I developed when I was working with Chris Camozzi. I was getting back into fighting, and he asked me to be his jiu-jitsu coach, and I knew he was going to go against a bunch of grapplers in PFL. So we came up with ways for him to lock up people's arms so they wouldn't take damage, so he could stand back up. Worked great. Fighting actually has been one of the coaching MMA fighters on a professional level has been something that has been very, very good for my jiu-jitsu because, with those, I always tell people the fundamentals or the guidelines I use in my jiu-jitsu are going to be obviously, leverage over strength, timing over speed, natural body movements over flexibility, and street effectiveness. MMA fighters want to stand up so they can get back to punching you. Wrestlers want to get back to standing up so they can, take you down and grind you into a pulp. So holding down MMA fighters and jiu-jitsu and wrestlers, and then being able to work jiu-jitsu on them, that's been really good for my jiu-jitsu, is just being able to hold people down. And but yeah, that's been a lot of fun as well. So I'm pretty happy with that Fanatics. I'd like to do some more with them. I know you guys got a whole bunch of them, don't you?
Yeah, I think I've got 3 with them so far. Hopefully I get to go out and do some more.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how these ones go. It's always fun going out to Boston. It was funny, it was literally one of the main messages I've been pushing, and I will turn this into a clip, that what you just said is the continuity of jiu-jitsu. There has to be the MMA it has to be something you can do as an MMA, you can do in competitive jiu-jitsu, you can do in self-defense. You can't have gym jiu-jitsu, this outlying sport that has no connection to those things. And
yeah,
it has to, when you talk about effectiveness, you can, gym jiu-jitsu can be effective, where people just roll and it's effective against other gym jiu-jitsu. But once you put in people who want to get the fuck back up, does your jiu-jitsu work? I don't know. Unless you train against people who are trying the same.
Yeah.
It's going down the Aikido route. So yeah, it's interesting you say that, having these pro MMA fighters under your stable and going, it really makes you examine what makes your jiu-jitsu work.
Oh yeah, it's been game changer. I stepped back in 2020. I started coaching MMA again, and it was a huge eye opener to me, because like when I stepped away from it back when I started teaching out here, like back in like 2008, 2007, 2008, I stepped away when I opened up my school. And I did a little bit of work with a few fighters, but then it just kind of fizzled out, and I was like, I'm just focused on jiu-jitsu. I still had the right techniques, because head down, good pressure, but when I got back into it, the game had changed so much. And the reason why I wasn't too interested in it in the beginning it wasn't very strategic. It was very much caveman, swing and grab. It wasn't very technical. And now the game has evolved so much to where it's very technical. And if you apply your jiu-jitsu and those technical problems, I like what Hickson said. Hickson said that, I halfway agree with this, not fully, but Hickson said that if he was asked if he believed that jiu-jitsu was enough for MMA. And he said yes. And he said yes, if you train your jiu-jitsu against a boxer, if you train your jiu-jitsu against a wrestler, if you throw your jiu-jitsu in these different environments, and you learn to deal with those specific, type of situations, then yes. And I do agree with that. But I also like what you said. You said that if your jiu-jitsu is contingent on its effectiveness on the clothing you wear, then your jiu-jitsu is kind of not that great. I remember you said that last time you were out here.
Weirdly enough, I went to a Ryan Hall seminar a week ago. Of recording this, and his words were, your jiu-jitsu should work regardless of what you're wearing. And I'm just sitting there bashing my head into the wall, just like,
because you
finally someone else is saying this. Like, weirdly enough, so some of the stuff I say on this podcast, about a day later, Dan Ho will put the same stuff on Instagram, and it's been a bit of a joke with me and one of my black belts, like, what's Chris going to say now that Dan Ho's now going to say? And it happened that some people who listen to this then message me, were like, yeah, he said, like, he must have listened to it, because he's literally they said the exact same words.
I saw that. I saw that neutralizing the attack first. Yeah.
Dude, it happened again the following day. Like, one of my my friends, affiliate for a good friend who was also affiliate, Roger, he messaged me, was like, dude, I'm pretty sure he listens to you. I'm like, I fucking hope not. Like, unless he is going to listen to us right now. I'm like, hey, John, we figured you out, man. He probably doesn't. It's just me being paranoid. Yeah, like
one
it's
thing.
those fundamental ideas.
Yeah, 100%.
Carry on.
One thing I noticed too is when you get to, I feel like when you get to a certain level of understanding in jiu-jitsu, that the funnel starts to get smaller and smaller. And then you start down this path of what is effective, what isn't, what is practical, what isn't. And at the highest level, I'll start to see similarities. Like I see similarities what like Javi teaches that I teach. I see similarities in a lot of things, like just different ways of explaining it. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I like the way he explained that. That's a better way than I was explaining. But I feel like once you get that understanding, you understand how the body works, how to anticipate some of the encounters that they're going to do to you. I feel like it just kind of funnels down a kind of central path of effectiveness. And I feel like the guys who've been on it longer, they're just a little further along that path than you. But it's neat because you'll see my first experience with that was when I don't know if you know the guy Paige Apano was a world champion back in the day when I was training, and he came to, I met him in Brazil, and he came to Helson's. We'd always get these world champions come to Helson's in Hawaii, and he came out there and literally taught exactly what I figured out. Like literally taught how I was doing my triangle. I would put the knee across, use my knee pull and strip the arm out, throw up the triangle. And if that didn't work, I'd throw the arm bar. And I was like, I figured that out. And here's this world champion coming in and teaching it. And then another time, Master Kaiki came in and he was teaching a seminar, and he showed me how he recovers the guard with the backside shrimp, popping the shoulder, lead shoulder. I was like, yeah, I do that too. So I started seeing this happen over the years. I've seen this happen time and time again, where it really, I feel like all jiu-jitsu, nobody really creates it. They just discover it. Like I feel all jiu-jitsu
Yeah,
already exists, and we just discover it. And there's definitely something at that higher level where people just start doing the same kind of idea, maybe a little bit of different, a little bit
completely.
of tweaks here and there. But I think that's
Well, it's
that
like I said at
path
the
of
beginning, that
mastery.
it's physics and physiology. That's all
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu is. It's the blend of these two things and applying a human. And if we were to delete everything we have, we'd still rediscover it. I think the
yeah,
bigger problem and question of coaching is then how do we get across the physics and the physiology, not the techniques. Like, that's just an expression of the physics and the physiology. And it's almost
yeah,
like you need to convince people when they first start learning jiu-jitsu, like, these aren't the answers you're looking for. Like, you don't need to go online and learn a whole bunch of techniques. I mean, we're both from a traditional martial arts background as well. Like, you said you started in other martial arts, kempo, karate, before jiu-jitsu. I was in Japanese jiu-jitsu, and that was very curriculum, kata, etc. And that informed how I then initially approached jiu-jitsu. Of like, I need to learn just more technique instead of
yeah,
I need to understand the physics and the physiology. If I understand that, I see the matrix. And that completely then changed how I should then coach. As in, I'm trying to give you the physics and physiology. You'll then understand everything you see. I'm trying to show you the matrix, not techniques. Don't go
yeah.
looking for techniques. If you come to me saying, I've learned this new technique, I'll slap you. You're looking the wrong way.
Yeah, man, it's interesting to hear you say that. One technique that I liked in teaching, and I don't know if you've played with this, but I stumbled across this just kind of by accident. I was teaching guard passing to my students, and I was noticing that like none of them could do that they were missing it. So I was like, all right, we're gonna hold here, and we're gonna keep our structure, and we're gonna keep them. This is when I came up with grip tension frame opportunity, GTFO. So get a grip, create tension through the frame, and then you get your opportunity. And what I would do is I would just tell them, I'll say, get into this position where you have your balance is good, your stability is good, and you have good frames, and you have tension. You're putting tension on the person. And I would just say, you stay there. Don't move. just keep the tension. And then I started seeing my students getting perfect timing on the moves because all that everything would be spring loaded, spring loaded. When the guard would open, bam, they would be moving right into that space because they're holding that structure. And I started putting people into positions of tension, and I would say find your frames, use your frames, use your skeleton to like lock in and be there like efficiently to where you're not burning a lot of energy. Just hold the position, hold your structure. Fortified movement is what I would call that. And that really, when I saw that, I was like, I've been teaching jiu-jitsu wrong. You know, because
no, I think I showed it this week. I call it Jedi, where I'll say to people like, you know, it's like Wing Chun, like Kung Fu. Like if you be too in the moment, too planning ahead, like you won't feel the adjustments they make. If you just put your frame against their arms, you'll feel the punch come early. Like I don't believe in Kung Fu, but I feel that when it comes to like escaping things or passing, like be in balance. Don't think about anything else. Just be aware of their body. Close your eyes, and you'll feel the moment come. Like you feel the adjustment through theirs. You'll feel their body move first. If you're too on the go attacking, you'll miss those moments. It's the same like with judo. Like you hold on to someone's gi, and then you feel their weight shift, and you know which way they have to go. And that is again one of those skills that you have to say to people, like stop freaking the fuck out, thinking you have to do something. You don't. Be still. You'll be fine.
Just like Charles did. Be still.
Yeah, exactly. Again, Charles fucking Harriet.
Right.
I'm seeing him in a week's time in Germany, and I'm going to talk to him about this because I think schedule it'll probably come out whilst I'm in Germany. And yeah, fuck Charles Harriet. He can have a bit of a go off me whilst I'm there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll have to come over soon, or you can come over to the UK. I don't know which way that works. Really?
Well, you're not missing anything. I've never been. Well, I definitely will. You never know. Like most of the traveling I do now is with fighting, if I got similar, but more fighting. So I'm getting more, high caliber fighters working with me. So you never know where I'm going to be. I know that I'm very happy and very proud of my my friend and one of my fighters that I coach, Basil. Man, he got his debut, and he's got a contract. He got signed by the UFC. We've got 3 more fights in the UFC. You never know where that's going to go. And then I have a couple other guys that are right on the cusp of breaking into that as well. So you never know, man. I don't like to travel as much anymore, but I've been having to travel a lot, and it's been great because I get to meet different people. I believe, man, everywhere I go, someone's always going to add to my jiu-jitsu because, I have the humility to know that this game is very big, and I would love to tap into someone's mind who's been doing it for, anybody's been doing it for 10 years or more, or even less than that. If they're a specialist at something, everybody has something to offer. You can learn from anyone. So the more people that can show me something useful and then I can apply it to my game, the better I get, the better I become as a coach, the better I become as a practitioner. And, it's just about leveling up, man. I always want to be leveling up.
I think it was something that Ryan said, Mr. Hall, last weekend, where he said, when you're especially you say it was on about the US education system, when you're at school, it's your ability to memorize, it's your ability to copy off a board and just memorize, and that'll get you through your exams. Yet, for the rest of your life, critical thinking is the important thing that's going to get you through. And so I completely agree. Like, I will not discount someone else. Like, if someone comes to me and like they're a white belt or blue belt or purple or whatever, like you could be a doctor, you could be an engineer, you could be something. Someone with critical thinking skills in another field, but you have the ability for critical thinking. There's no way I'm going to discount what you know. Like, if you can approach a problem and go, through my intelligence, I can see this. I'm like, holy shit, I want to hear from you. Like, just because you're not a black belt doesn't mean shit. And and so it's that kind of hangover of jiu-jitsu, like the lower person can't ask the upper belt to roll, like bollocks. Like if you're an intelligent human being, I want to hear from you. If you're a dumbass, probably not. But if you're an intelligent human being, doesn't matter what belt, I want to listen to what you have to say. And jiu-jitsu is the best vehicle, I think, for seeing the world, because no matter where you go,
hell yeah, man, there's
friendly people. I mean, I'm not a religious man by any stretch. Maybe slightly spiritual, just because of this idea that I'm a kid from Stafford, England. I don't even know where the fuck it is on a map, let alone anyone else. Yeah. I'm talking to a guy I met from Littleton, Denver, Colorado, and you think, in what universe would we have ever met?
Right.
And the idea that I could sit at your, I remember doing it at the time, like sitting and having food with you afterwards, just thinking, holy fuck, why am I here? Like,
jiu-jitsu, bro.
It was jiu-jitsu, and anyone with any interest in this sport, like, if this is like the final message we kind of leave on, like, absolutely, like, jiu-jitsu will take you places that you never even considered if you let it. And wherever you go, there's someone friendly there, and you can have those weird spiritual moments where you think, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, but thank God I am. Right? I can't wait to come back to Denver and play more.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, I'm glad we met, brother. I'm excited. Yeah, it's you learn a lot about someone on the mats, and there's guys that you link up with. I don't know. You're one of those people, man. That definitely I'm gonna see you again. Definitely, I'm gonna learn from you. We're gonna show each other some stuff, and I don't know, man. It's jiu-jitsu's been opening doors in my life for many years. It just breaks down barriers. Jiu-jitsu will change the world. I mean, it is. And maybe it's not changing the whole world, but my world's changed, your world's changed, your students you have, their world changes. It just starts with individuals. And I think jiu-jitsu is one of the best ways to make a positive impact in your community and just in your bubble, because your bubble expands when you start touching lives.
I think it was actually Charles, just to finish on that man again. Not in that way, that sounds weird.
He's a savage.
But like one thing, like, because my first go in the US was him vouching for me. We met in the UK. He was traveling through. I set him up over here to do a seminar, and he went back to the US and was like vouching for me as a brown belt to some of the gyms around Florida, and that paid off. And that man, he is a proponent of karma. Like, if you do good, it will come find you eventually. And I remember actually, I think it was when I spoke to Derek about coming over to see you guys. I was like, look, I'm with my friend Charles. He's a fucking great guy. I think Derek can do him from the Globetrotters videos. But I was like, look, he's come along. Would you mind? And we managed to come over and meet you both. And automatically, you have this great relationship already. I'm like, karma again. Like, I'm so. Probably one of those other things, like jiu-jitsu is great for seeing the world, but you have to put some karma to it. And if someone does good by you, like, pass it on. Like, it'll pay off.
Well, when you come out, you get to stay. Hey, when you come out, you get to stay at you can stay at my house, man. What we did with Charles and Natasha, I have a private mat room. We turned it into a room, so you can stay at the jiu-jitsu suite.
Does Charles ever leave that, or does he just, like? I bet he freaks out the second he sees it and just wants to roll in there. Like, that man doesn't leave the mats.
That's the first time we did that, because we were doing a lot of remodeling with the house, and I was like, what do you think? You can just stay in there. We'll make it look nice. So it did. Ask him about it, but yeah, man, when you come out, you can stay at the house too. We'll have fun, talk story.
Can't wait.
And we have the jiu-jitsu mat, so we can just train anytime, whatever, man. Be good to learn from you.
Can't wait to come out. I say hopefully before the end of the year. But thank you so much for saying yes to coming on this. It's been great to actually have a good conversation in a while, dude. It's been feels like no time has passed. But yeah, it's weird. It's been a year. Yeah. And funny, we've only met once in person, and it already feels this easy. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been good talking to you, sir. And
likewise.
I can't wait to come out. I can't wait to come out again. So. Thank you, Steve. And yeah, I'll put links to your your Instagram and the gym website on, if anyone's listening to this via Spotify, Apple, seems to be what most people find it on. If you go onto the YouTube video for this, there's going to be links to Steve's work, and definitely hit the guy up. He's a great guy. If you're passing through the hub of Denver, like, have a little layover and go do some good jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, right on. All right, brother. I'll see you soon, man.
Take care, dude. See you soon. Bye.
Yep.